then have to sign in to be advanced.
Yeah.
See,
Greetings, everybody, to this wonderful day here, and I guess it's February. Happy President's Day. We hope we out after at least we want the President's Day shopping. Yeah, I know that's this, okay? Anyway, meeting is hereby called to order. Don has circulated the copy of the January minutes that have been circulated earlier. Additions and corrections were added. If there are no further comments, then I have the motion that will be accepted as so. Second. So be it. All in favor?
Aye.
We moved very quickly. The next item on the agenda was the elected updates and needed. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure. Couple of things just from our meeting, and thank you. I was paying for a tooth that cost more than my car on Thursday, so sorry to meet with you and Mike. I think every time they get a new machine at the dentist, I said, well, could you just make it do everything, CT scan, everything,
Some of them do.
I know.
I didn't get to,
Yeah. So, but I did notice from our conversation with Sharon gave me an update. We do have the signs for Olson and Holbrook. Those we were able to keep, but the sign that was originally in front of the community center, that marker, I can tell you that that hasn't been there since the day I started. Because a week before I started as an interim, they closed off the front lobby and they were starting construction. So when I say we can't find it, I mean, not only can we not find it, Dean McCumber may be the only written history, but he didn't put it away. And we don't know where that is. So I understand that you have Margaret Keller getting ready to make
Well,
a sign.
I've asked Dean and Margaret to work together to design a plaque that we should replace for the law one, and we use on Old and Holbrook, there's new news, but very welcome news. Like that, here in some of that.
Okay.
Make it available to them, we can probably be able to take from that. And put it all.
Okay.
we're not quite sure what it is.
Well, this is about, they were, the cornerstones that you put on the building and say, built in such and such, dedicated by such and such. Division of the board, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's gone. Yeah.
And the issue was raised by residents about with the new naming of the new health center, the Cohen Health Center, what was happening with the recognition of the original construction of the forest with the Cohen and Olson and Holbrook were part of the community that created this group in the first place. The buildings were built, they were recognition plaques put in place. And Anita said the one for the main building, which was we are calling the I'm sorry. Yeah, it was a major driver in terms of starting the forest disappeared, and we wanted to make sure that was reinstituted.
Yeah, great.
All right, so that was that. The topic of discussion and one that has taken various turns and lots of information, but not necessarily correct, is the issue of the resident council and what comprises a caucus for the health center. What are the regulatory requirements and why is that different? So under CMS regulation, which we are licensed by, and state of North Carolina, the health center must be seen as a separate facility with regard to a resident council. You must have, under regulation, a resident council that consists of all of the residents in the nursing home. CMS recognizes that not all of the residents may be able to participate or able to, quote, make that happen. And the regulations require that there is a designated staff liaison to that. So you have to have a council. There has to be a staff liaison. The resident council working with that staff liaison. No one, it's residents and it can be family members, but no staff are invited and are there unless they are invited. meaning I don't even go to that meeting unless I'm invited. Issues that are raised, if there's a concern that comes up from the staff liaison, that goes directly to Leanne to be resolved if it fits the form of a grievance. We have a grievance policy, the forms, the process, and the follow-up. The issue is, how do we have some liaison, et cetera? And we've been trying to parse this apart. I've got to meet the regs the way they want them read. When the state comes in, there are 25, 30 different things that they want to know from that resident council. They're part of the survey process. There are guidelines for how it's set up. So one of the opportunities is, while I don't necessarily have a caucus for you, and it's, people are saying, well, Leanne just doesn't want to have the meeting. No, Leanne is responsible for making sure we're compliant with the regs. So that has nothing to do with Leanne doesn't want to have the meeting. But I was thinking about it, she and I were talking about it, I was trying to figure out how can we create some liaison across connection. And the one thing that seems to fall outside of the regs, and I'm a former Fed, so I'm really good at figuring out how to blow a red when you have to, And so the idea would be, if there is someone in the health center who's willing to be a liaison to the resident association. Now, I understand, and it's hearsay, but Lord knows, of course, who's good at it, that somebody's trying to get Mr. Harrington to possibly do that. Well, if Bill Harrington is willing to be a liaison and you're willing to accept him as a liaison to your committee, fine. I'm not abridging what the regs require. There's some representation here, but the resident association is not a grievance committee. And there is a process for grievance, for issues and concerns. There is also a healthcare committee that is part of the resident association, which is again, another process for information, grievance and concerns. So, but if you want that liaison, that's the way I can get around the regs if someone is willing to do that. The other thing that you have to monitor and understand is that sometimes you may have no one in the health center who is able and or willing to do that. And that is their right. And you gotta kind of respect that. But so I'm not trying to say no, I am trying to throw the baby in the air and split it the best way I can without breaking the regs and give you what you want. So I'm not going to make that decision. That's up for your discussion. Please let me know what it is you ultimately decide if you want to follow through with that way. I have talked to Leanne so that we could support that and know that we wouldn't be in violation of the regs. And let's face it, it's the craziest thing. They write more regs for this than they do for nuclear power. But we do have to live with them. And there's no sense getting state or the feds mad at you, certainly not now. Just trying to be in compliance. But I think that's a way we can meet an objective and actually have it be meaningful in some way. But again, that's your decision. I don't need to be privy to that except to know what your decision is. Okay.
Any questions? When you said have a representative, could that be an independent living person? Who
No.
Is appointed, requested by the residents of the company?
The residents' council committed to ask other people in.
Yes. They are permitted to ask other people in. Yes, to attend the meeting. And it's not a permanent attend.
Yeah,
And it's their choice.
and Bill Harrington was on my hallway and I know he would be a good one.
I'm not gonna have that discussion with you.
Yeah,
That's your
no, I was
business.
just telling,
Yeah,
I don't know if I don't know how many people know Bill.
so, but what I can't say is, oh, and Bill Harrington will be the head of the resident association in the health. I can't say that. Can't do that. Okay, right, it's their choice. So, and I'm sure this is the forest, this will come up again, but at least we've got a place to start. Okay. Then, let's see. So I got feedback that there was some upset about the opportunity that was presented with a special meal or an extra meal in Rosewood, and I wanted to kind of go back and figure out, so what happened, what was going. So what we really had is Dining responding to some of the requests of residents, can we do something different? Can we have some variety, et cetera? And they're going to try things out. And I am not going to have them ask permission to do that. However, I did understand, and I got from both Nathan and from Sharon, that there was some discussion about the special mills that have just started in Rosewood. Daryl, at the last meeting, which I guess was on Wednesday of last week, that these will be served 2 times a week, although not always the same nights, and that they will appear on the weekly menu. The price, state chart for the meal is the entree and indicated sides with no substitutions. And it is not an upcharge and it can be paid with by points. So that discussion did occur, so it wasn't somebody screaming anything unbeknownst. But the idea is, we're not always gonna ask permission to do something new or different or respond to a service need. And that's not to be duplicitous or anything else, it's just that that's part of what we should be doing. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear, and sometimes things will be a good success. And sometimes they'll belly flop so bad, there'll be no water in the pool. And that's okay, we're allowed to make those mistakes and keep going.
Just for clarification, what was the upset you heard?
The upset was that the dining committee had not been told, and that the resident association had not been told beforehand.
And that was my upset, because it was not provided on Wednesday, which is what I have a standing reservation for Tuesday.
So you made your upset a big issue? Well, that is kind of narcissistic.
I think communication is very important, and I think it would have been nice if someone, a board had gone in and worked forward or something that said, hey, this is going to happen. Nobody's asking for permission. It's advanced information in terms of what's happening. And that goes across the board in terms of instituting anything rather than just have it announce this is what I'm doing before people look at it and say, well, this is the change. That's
So, okay, I'm hearing you and I'm trying to internalize that, but part of me wants to say, what is the incentive for people to try to listen and try things new or to be innovative? The first thing we do is say what's wrong because I didn't know beforehand. I could understand if we were taking something away. I could understand if we were saying, you know what, we added this entree, we're gonna charge you $44 for it. I could understand wanting to know that first, but to try something new, didn't cost you anything more, I'm okay.
As chair of the dining committee, I don't have a problem with trying to add something on as opposed to taking something away. We did discuss it at the last week's meeting just to get clarification of how it's gonna work, that there was a thought it might be a one-time thing, because last week was Valentine's week. And we found out, no, this is gonna be a new thing going forward, so I have no.
I think one of the things that wasn't clear whether it was the charge for the meal or whether it was an upcharge on top of the normal $12.50 for the Rosewood.
And that's what I did ask both Nathan and Carla. They said, I want you to always try anything that you want, especially if you think it's gonna be satisfying or surprising. But you have to make sure that the people who are serving the food, who are there in the moment, can explain what you've done, because it's no good if it's in your head and you're in the car going home. So that, every wait person needed to know, this is not an upcharge. Yes, you can use your points, etc. So that they are equipped to be able to answer your questions, because it's not the hey, they should be able to answer it right then and there. So that was the lesson that I think we learned, is just make sure people are empowered to answer questions. Is that okay?
Exciting. I thought it was great.
And roast beef was worth whatever it cost, and I ate the second half of it for lunch today.
Yeah, and the feedback I've gotten from the people who've taken part in it so far has been good.
Oh. And the last thing, I really don't need to do a lot about, but I know that there was a letter that circulated about noise abatement, etc., and kind of the beginning feeling that we were not doing enough to do that. So there's a couple of things going on. There is a small church. It is a non-denominational Pentecostal apostolic, you name it, church. And there have been complaints of noise that surfaced, and a resident brought that to our attention. We have been working with that church. We got some abatement for a while, and then it came back. We went back to the owner, have been working with them. We added and provided some sound abatement equipment for them. And it's a work in progress, but I'm going to tell you some of the feeling about it has been vociferous. And here's the issue. We want to work with our neighbors and resolve this. And I'm going to tell you that we can stomp and fuss all we want. But I would rather have this small church that has not broken the 80 decibel limit that is the city limit. I would rather have them as our friend than our enemy, because not only are they there, they're expanding. I don't want them to have church service 5 nights a week at a decibel level we can't stand. So yes, anytime you're working with someone, you're working with the landlord, you're working with deacons, you're working with the pastor, but we have done some noise abatement. We will continue to do that. We now have exhausted our own internal expertise. We've called in sound engineers. You don't call labor and experts in and they show up the next day just because you called. So we're waiting for them to come so that they can tell us what are the other opportunities to mitigate. But this has no way been something that's been ignored. But what I don't want the forest to have a reputation for is being that group of people behind the gate who said, we don't like the noise of your church. Because even if that's true, the optics are awful. And you don't want to be that community, and we don't want to have that site. But what we do want to do is help them abate the noise, to be a partner, and that takes a longer time. But Nathan and Sharon, I have delegated them the responsibility to resolve this. They are actively working on it. When they say it has to wait for the next step, it's not because they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs. They are out there, they have a course of action. We meet about it every week so that I know what's going on. So I just want to affirm that this is not something that people are suffering in silence. This is not something we are not trying to address. But I am being very specific in how we do address it, because there is no point in having it in our community.
Where's that church? I mean, obviously, it must be bothering some people that live in an area.
Nobody, it's on 15501.
Uh-huh.
It's down in the corner past the Indian restaurant. It's at the end. There's a hillside by one side and a hillside by the other. It's a perfect tunnel for sound amplification. Okay, and it just shoots right up. So we've given, and we actually purchased for them some mitigating vinyl board, et cetera, to absorb some sound. We're looking at, and we did some things with some fencing. We looked at some internal opportunities, but we want the sound engineer to really help us. I mean, basically, we're trying to be their friend and not their enemy. It's a not-for-profit church. If we can help them have a quieter service, fine. The notion of turn it down, that's not working. And it's not consistent. And actually, I think over the course of the year, they might have changed music directors. You know, I'm not casting aspersions about anybody. I'm Presbyterian. We couldn't make noise if you wanted to. You know, this is a praise church, and it has amplification, and it has instruments. So, and it's in the perfect position for amplified noise. So we're working with them, and we will continue to do that. But it does take time. And we have seen a bit slow abatement, but not eradication. And again, we have not had a level of noise that is over. It's 80 decibels, I believe, that is the level that becomes an official complaint. We didn't get over 50. Doesn't mean it isn't irritating, and it's percussive. And so, because it was a lower note, so you're going to hear that. If it was a flute, we wouldn't be bothered. But that's kind of where we are. So, and I am not trying to take this in any less than a serious way, but we're very intentional about how we're approaching this. A heavy hand is not going to get us where we need to be.
Andre, the people who are hearing it the most, the cottages, Forest of Duke, and the side closest to Pickett.
Yeah.
Sounds like from what you're saying, though, they've been reasonable in their attitude.
And we're just not there, and that's gonna take time. So, but I wanted you to know that both Sharon and Nathan they come in on Saturdays, they come in on Sundays, they come in on Thursday. I came on in the one Sunday, they didn't make noise. But trying to make sure so that we're all hearing the same thing, and what does it sound like from where we are? And we're outside, so we hear it from the outside, it would ostensibly be louder than it would be in someone's house. You can hear the percussive. But, and there's different points of hearing, and I don't hear it all the time, so, the issue is we're gonna keep working on it. And I just want you to be aware of that. If someone says we're not, we are.
They're praying for peace around the world.
You know, yeah, and and let's at least have peace among neighbors, okay? And basically, that's kind of the full house of what's going on. We're trying to schedule some meetings in April. Bringing back our committees and resident committee and resident association. We have some our Gantt lines, et cetera. We're still on the same line for substantial completion of June 30th. So that's what we're anticipating, that handover. That means we have to do a punch list. We're working through all of that and finalizing what we need to hire and do. And we'll be bringing that information back, but that won't be until April. And that goes actually because that will actually have some discussion not only among our long-range planning committee of our governing board, but also our.
Well, I saw Jersey barriers coming into that.
Yeah, yes. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. So we are gonna have a southeast road closure. And I don't know the exact dates yet because they don't know the exact dates yet, but it is upcoming in the next couple of weeks. We'll be rerouting traffic and you will see some of the snow fencing and other fencing coming down. That is not an open invitation to walk a construction site. It's still a construction site and you will do so at your own risk and at your own peril. So when we say don't go, we mean don't go. But some of that has to come down because it's impeding the ability to finish the work in the areas that they need to get to. And then there's some more landscaping that's going to happen at the garden outside of the health center. And we're back into the first floor of the health center and everything. People are back in rooms and back in operating. So, thank you. Anything else? Any questions? Yes,
The search for alternative transportation business.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know, we talked about it a number of times, but when forest transportation is not available to pay somebody on it, you were looking into some alternative transportation.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and I think
like Uber and all of those things. Well, that's not a hard search. Sarah has been able to pull that together and we're certainly Uber. We don't have a contract with Uber yet. So that was looking for a contracted for our community and we don't have that yet.
Tom, I put that discussion off. Elizabeth is gonna give us an update on communication she's had with Sarah today. I thought we covered it already. I did not expect, even to talk to them.
And I apologize, my brain didn't even go where you were going. So I'm sorry. But that's what we know. Any other questions? I promise I won't do that either.
Thank you very much, Anita. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Have a good meeting.
All right, I'll keep my, until the time is very short. First of all, you got an email that I wanted to change the format to the meeting. But I think you're doing a great job getting the highlights out. And then Robert did a fantastic job compiling those for single documents, you don't want to jump between up team documents. And I've heard you have to read that, so it's rather than having people go around and basically report on their highlights already submitted. I will only ask each committee chair if there's something specific that they want to make sure we focus on, because unresolved at the meeting, then we can put a track in and discuss it and follow on either old business or new business in the following meeting. I want to keep this meeting where it ends by before 1:15, because the group that comes in at 3:15, because it's the group that comes in at 3:30. And we're always stepping on each other's toes. And I'd rather make sure that what we focus on are the issues that, I mean, with unresolved issues or issues which we're working on, and the board should be aware. The only other point I would make is that I noticed that the format by which minutes are coming in has changed significantly. And in previous administrations, I'm not sure if it was due Carol or what, there was a document put out that said, hey, here's a format that minutes should take place in terms of the heading title, the date of the meeting, the last meeting, the upcoming meeting, and the format of attendees, non-attendees, invitees, and so forth. And Don, work with me to get that format out to you, and I'd like to get you follow it. And the only other last question is, I noticed it's coming in both Word as well as PDF. Do you have a specific preference for how you want it come in?
Word is more easier, PDF you put on. So it came in Word, easy for me to.
Okay.
But I would like to say one thing about that, PDF is important if you're gonna be using, people do use their phones to try to read things, and what they look like on a Word, on a computer are completely different on your phone, it's all messed up. And that's why we send things out in PDF. I happen to use my phone almost all the time.
Well, secondly, if anything that is uploaded to the website is easier in PDF, because right now, Erwin has to take the Word, convert it to PDF and upload it. If you send it out in PDF, that's one step to take off his back.
That is true. I mean, when I'm sending anything for uploading, it's always in PDF form, but for me to work on, it's just easier.
Yes,
Well, sometimes people tell me since I only have an Apple computer that they can't work from my pages, so that's why I send PDF.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
I mean, I can manage it, but it's just the convenience.
yeah. Uh,
for what it's worth, Pages will export the Word to a Word document if you want to.
Yeah, if I was an IT specialist, I could do a lot of things. I'm learning bit by bit. So bear with me. I've never been a treasurer before, but
I'll look at Don and we'll sign discussing coming with a proposal for the next meeting, but we do want at least a change format so that all the minutes come through with the sync. That's all I have. I'll turn on to the treasury report.
okay, so first, financial statement was as of January 31st, posted in the connection room. We had a book balance of $8,989 dollars. And the big expenses, the expenses that month were for the pictorial directory, $1,099.19. And information technology, $91. Then.
Everybody got all the numbers.
Yeah.
All the going through that.
That's right. So you all know that we made $5,895, actually plus $15 because we had an extra sale this past weekend and Judy Vick had an extra one. Besides the expenses for the printing, which I gave you, we also have, I also purchased for the layout through Instant Church Directory, $248, and that's for 3 years. Before I forget, I wanted to tell you that I filed for IRS taxes on the 11th. I forgot to put that in there. So that's done. That's taken care of. And I keep that information in the box that Ken gave me. Because apparently that should go to the archivist, but we don't have one, archivist, but we don't have one. Then in terms of resident association dues, so we got $3,560. And I have not heard a peep about people's complaints about being charged through the statement. So that's good, because in the past, there had been, some people wanted to pay cash or pay by check, whatever. In the previous report, where I wasn't there because I had to be someplace else. I mentioned that I would review the fall 2024 employee appreciation fund I haven't had the time to do that, so we'll continue. That for next month. I wanted to say something about the billing process, and part of it is because I'm new to this and whatnot, but I just wanted to remind everybody that the invoices must come to the treasurer who will pay them. And I'll handle them. I'll pay invoices online through Wells Fargo Bill Pay, or I'll send out a check, whatever the company needs. And I will only reimburse as an exception when it seems like nothing else can be done. It is becoming complicated actually, because when you have online purchases, different companies have different ways to handle it, and that needs to be resolved individually with whatever committee has to deal with. So that's basically it. Then I just wanted to present to you the money aspect of the plans to digitize the forester. Dave Sloan submitted to me that the domain name, which is the forester.net, is costing $12.98 a year. And then, of course, there has to be a website hosting for the year. So that's $53.76. And they worked on a flipbook capability with the issue, and that's $176.40 a year. So you have a total cost for digital forester, which is like $243 and some cents. And that's really a bargain if you look at providing a printed copy every month. The forester committee has been getting 320 copies every month. The thing is that from what I understand, the number of copies made according to the plan, it will drop in April to 200 and then in May to 100. And the digital is supposed to come in March. So the one concern that I have is that how we're gonna make sure that everybody who still wants a printed copy gets it. And I know we can afford it, so you don't have to worry about that. And that's basically it. And now you, Joe, that's the discussion.
Any comments?
The only comment I had when you sat around this issue, is that forester to me is the kind of document, actually you might want an hard copy because you tend to keep it. Unlike a lot of the other things, certainly, forest law, which is general.
Yeah, I'd like to put discussion on that on
Yeah.
the new business category.
Okay.
Clearly, I support the move to digital. The issue comes in, however, is the distribution system. And at least from my perspective, I don't have a clear view of the distribution system. And I do know that when Sarah moved to get rid of your monthly calendar of events, and saying all of the issues in the correspondence room, there was a significant uproar in terms of the surprise and the lack of that, in terms of the ease of going through the 30 days on a piece of paper versus on the digital access. And I went to get a hard copy of the correspondence room, and I couldn't find it. So they apparently cleaned that. So I do think that's an issue. And then the other question comes in that I've got down in the condition with the IT committee and the recommendation they have on the our website, and how the RA website interfaces with this new entity we're calling the Forester Database website. But again, we'll discuss that in the Thank you.
Yeah, that brings up an observation that I've made. So here I am, I've been here for about a year. And I thought, wow, that forester, they must be keeping the collection in the library. No one looking for the forester in the library. A lot of people love that forester. They're doing a nice job. And I couldn't find it anywhere, so I thought maybe it's in the connection room somewhere. And I couldn't find it in
There's an
any place, so
archive
it
on
would
the
be,
website.
so it would be nice to keep the collection in print.
It's
Yeah,
hard,
so
that's hard to keep. And
Really?
hard, it's hard to search.
Yeah,
It's huge.
I understand.
yeah.
But if, Dave, if you want to address this,
think we're getting
to it
later.
okay,
We'll get into it.
Yeah.
That's been
So
solved.
we need to archive you whatever, I
Right.
think Tom put out a report, because we think you have to pop up. Anyway, thank you very much. Andre.
I think that's it.
Now, on the standing committee reports, I'm just gonna go through. What I'd like you to do is highlight those issues within your report that you feel could specifically be brought before the board and also that they need further tracking and following. Otherwise, you can just have to say it's in the document that Don is giving you. Activities, Elizabeth? Did you leave already? Oh, there. You go over. I will go over there.
So the one thing I'll say is that we put the monthly calendar that's now on Vigo, and there is in the news that says that that's there, and you can look at it. It's still on your phone or computer, whatever, but it is the entire monthly calendar, that you can see if I.
Dave, anything to add to your report on coffee?
No.
Jeff, anything on dining? Finance, Joel?
We met with Aaron, disclosure statement, which was the first time I knew about the disclosure statement. And that's because we know, given it, the stack of things when we came here, and I never opened it or read it. And so now I've seen it, and it's extraordinary. There's a lot of very rich information. And it deals with, who our board members are, it deals with what our rules are, for example, when we can kick someone out, when we kick them, hey, those are all there. And so that was amazing to me. And then it was, the other thing we learned is how big it's 25 pages or so long. And we will in the end of January each year. And that's a lot of work. And then the most amazing thing is I learned out it's on Cubicle. Now, look, it has last year's on Cubicle, but you're working. And it's, and the other thing that I also realized, which scared me, is it is there along with our competitors on the website of the insurance. And it's easy to find. I thought, sometimes I'm right there, very clear, with lots of information. And so understand that. And our competitors, our friends, they all see it too. So it's available out there. And so that's the sense in which we need to know more, because it's quite amazing.
Okay, thank you. Tom, on the governance?
Nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Finish your.
Don't have it.
Okay, well, you did have a comment in there on the archive and what we could be doing. Should we have a separate discussion on that?
Well, the question was, does the bylaw talk about document retention? Because said, Andre mentioned the IRS. And there's the policy and procedure 1.5 that has the retention schedule.
I bypassed Beth, Beth under general services. You may be aware that she started out a unique episode here when she was giving a lecture on earthquakes or volcanoes or whatever. And the last I chatted with her, she sort of recovering from that. Yeah, that's sort of another relapse, so to speak, was over the health center. And as a consequence, they have to get some of the substitute for the meeting. We got a good report put together by them, and hopefully she'll be back with us next meeting. Health committee,
The only thing is that we policy in terms of expensive medications for individuals who are moving in temporary units.
in the health center. Got it all down here. Just read it, we're gonna hear some complaints about these.
There's some coffee and conversation.
Yeah, well, two coffee and conversation sessions. But there will be complaints because we're taking independence away from them. That they like. Now, you raise the issue of the personal phones in your minutes. Should that be tracked in the follow-on? Or you think it's on the health committee? Right, well, the health committee will track that. We need to. They're almost constant complaints about staff, mostly CNAs being on their phone in the common area, the small area. And you just sort of sorting out, some of the phones are actually corresponding to community to their work. And some of them are personal. So we're just working it. By the way, the report on the sharing peer experiences is very positive. Has anybody thought of writing an article about that in the Forester and Bloomberg?
About what? I didn't catch what you were saying.
The new program that put in place, that hearing peer experiences.
Oh.
I know that in a certain instance, and you want to talk to somebody that do it before. Apparently, there's quite a good response to people trying me up and 13 minutes. Very good. I think it's wonderful.
Nice.
I'm wondering how widely. Not the knowledge of this is widely available. You could write up an article either before or something else.
Thought about an article for the Forester, but it hasn't gotten beyond thought. We have published it around, almost been, everything from the weekly updates to notices around campus, forums. Clinic is another place, there's a set of forums. We've got about 43 people who have agreed to share information so far. At the moment, we're looking for people who want information.
Yeah, this is good. It's marketing level.
Well, the only thing that we track is the number of residences. Right now, we are at 99%. There are only 2 vacancies that are being marketed in 2037 and 2026 in the independent living, and in the terraces, there are 4 apartments that are yet. They're being offered and reviewed. So that's really basically all I have to say.
Okay. Cindy?
I don't have anything more to say than what I sent to y'all over email. I hope you got it. Never know with my cottage.
Yeah, you didn't have Christensen on it or Huber. Joel,
Thank you, Veronica.
you did you get it? Well, you weren't on that one. Chris, Chris, oh,
I can see.
Chris.
And he very secretive. With that, let me move on to. Or she's only out in the previous meetings, like the update of state on and Elizabeth County, leave here shortly. So, be first on the agenda in your business category with the, to distribute at least to me the, information. In Sarah's email and went through the rationale, the pricing algorithm. Did you send that to everyone? Okay, did you give a brief update in terms of how she arrived at things and whether she's open to further discussions on the pricing?
So I spent an hour and a half. There. But most of it talking about the transportation and they drive. And it has a lot to do with particularly evening transportation to events that are like the special categories, the like DPAC and the basketball games in particular. And even though those are close, and what happens that we don't, this part we didn't think about is overtime for the drivers. And when it's an evening event, they are paid 4 hours, regardless of whether they work 1 or 2, 3. And so that contributes to the rising costs. And if we go during the week,
which is why a lot of the things like out to dinners are just a regular fee, because if Emma or, I'm sorry, nobody that works for community life, they can take off, it goes against their hours, their wage, and their paid salary. He can, if it's Emma, she doesn't have to come in if she stays late, she can come in late the next morning, and so it doesn't go against, it's not an extra cost for residents. So, and there are some things that are now free, that used to be the $3 things that they charge, those are zero. I'm going to the grocery store, I think it's one of those, anyway. So this is the rationale. Sarah did say, I said, my really irritation with it, it doesn't affect me personally very much, is that there was no transparency, which is my complaint now. But that's something. And she agreed that it would have been a better plan if she had given everybody confidence up, or even a small working committee of residents, which she didn't really want to do, so she felt like people would just complain. But anyway, so that was a trouble of that.
Is she open to doing that now, to fine tune it for
No.
next year?
No.
The year on?
No. She made that very, very, very clear. No change, and it's not gonna go down.
But no increases. Next year is gonna be pretty different.
No, I mean, and there's no way to say whether there's gonna be increases or not, because they have to plan for budget. They have the yearly budget, and they have to make that decision based on what's happening right now. What will happen when we have the terraces?
No, I agree with that statement. What I meant to say is she amenable to forming that committee to look toward
Oh, I don't-
2020?
That I did not ask her, and I'm happy to ask her that. I'm happy.
I think that would be very.
And she might really be very receptive.
Tom, do you have any comments?
Can I just say one other thing that has nothing to do
Sure.
with transportation? Apparently, there's a lot of ugly that's going around in our community. Ugly, residents being really ugly to staff. And it's very worrying about, not want to leave. First that. And so it's just something, we've done all these words on this, but we need to really practice that. I haven't heard anything myself, but
Is it dining,
Well,
housekeeping, or?
she
I
just said.
asked,
Sharon.
Sharon Chip, if that, if they have noticed an uptake in, rudeness to the employees.
Right.
Whether it was the same small group of individuals doing it at repeated times, or whether there was an increase in the numbers doing it. And she said they had noticed an uptick in the number of individuals who were being rude to staff.
Mhm.
And, she highlighted the fact that the part of the thing they use to sell people here, that the friendly community, it's, family, and the atmosphere is a very important one. And we could play a key role in reminding people of, common courtesies and what's taking place. And I would, part of my concern is whether the anxiety of the residents here with what's taking place in the current presidential office and what's taking place is raising people's anxiety issues and frustrations, and they may be taking it out on some of the staff. The Wiley point is well worth publicizing. When you see it happen, step in and shut it off, but also reminding people, maybe through the caucuses or whatever, that, the employees are still people and one should be courteous to them, and if they have a major issue, there, as Anita said, there are processes in place for raising those and bringing it up, not by yelling and screaming at the individual.
Sarah just said that people have been like snapping their fingers. Their kind of thing, like, get over here. Yeah, I mean, I've not seen it, but that's what she said.
Elizabeth, one thing on different, you're interacting with Sarah, I think the worst stressing I can understand we're not meeting to meet with a random group of residents to say we're raising questions. We have standing committee activities, and we have the RA board, and either one of them would be the proper forum for her to bring in.
Exactly. And I will definitely. With her for the future.
Exactly.
Any further comments?
Only one comment on that. She said there's a problem with people reserving a place on transportation and not showing up. In my opinion, if you reserve a place on the transportation, you pay. Whether you show up or not.
Unless you can't.
That being the issue.
And what you can't.
Well, no, I think you should be allowed to cancel. Yeah.
That'd be a no-show.
So they are definitely working on that, and that is gonna be publicized. And I can't remember if they're gonna do the 72 hour or 48 hour notice.
We'll track this.
Yeah.
For our meeting, because another key, that's believe it or not, is medical transportation. And that was mentioned in Beth's minutes, where there are emergency needs here at night, and the forest does not supply emergency medical transportation. You understand? that? And I'm not sure the community understands that. So supposedly a letter being written in terms of what medical transportation is being supplied by the forest and what is not being supplied. And we can be instrumental in distributing that information in the country. Okay, gift shop status update. You indicated you're going to get a group together and go up into the
I don't
middle.
think we need to do that now, because Lynn is back.
Oh, she's feeling better.
She came back.
She came, no one has told me that professionally, but I heard it on the grapevine, sort of like I heard about
Well,
Sarah Aney is doing
Please
live.
sit down and find out. There's been a change in the format for the issue. And she's coming back assuming there's a dramatic change in format for the issue. Which is to no longer provide, where she spends all week trying to provide items that can be shown. Okay, so either. I would like it to status report on that at the. Because I was on the impression it would go out, survey these other big shops and coming and informed to what they were doing and what we could incorporate into our program. And I think it still would be worthwhile to do that. Do they have a full-time employee spending full-time stocking it? Do they hire somebody else to do it and so forth? Information is.
I was just told hands off because Lynn's back. I don't know.
Oh,
Well,
It's not an issue, right?
information is getting.
Your search.
Look into getting the carpool up again.
Carol Woods has an amazing gift shop.
That's what I hear.
All right, let me move quickly to the name tag update. The name tags are almost delivered by the end of the month. They got out on February 4th. Part of the reason for the delay is that we have a database problem in terms of who residents are and how to contact. And there is an up-to-date list that sits within finance, but that list is only shared with us once a year, which is in December when people go up there and request the list for the purpose of the pictorial directory, okay? But basically, the day after they get that list is obsolete. Because people die, people move change rooms and health center issues and everything else. So we, basically, the initial list that was used is the 2024 directory list. We had about 80 names that were out of whack. We have to fix that up. But anyway, it just highlighted the fact that we have a database problem. And if we're relying on push emails, I think the only place where that will exist is basically at the caucus level, where the caucus leader presumably has email listings for the people on his floor. We have no method for pulling those together and assembling it into a unified base or something. Whatever. I just laid that out as a problem. or, an issue, the only way I know to do a push email blurb to give to Dave and say, hey, Dave, have your email, your caucus captain, ship it to their 10, 14, 15
I believe
residents.
that's the only way to do it.
Pardon?
I believe that is the only way to do it.
Yeah, yes, you're right, and hopefully they're keeping their databases up to date. I know when I was there, it was painful because I did not get information as a caucus leader from marketing when new people moved in. You literally have to wait for it to be announced to go up and knock on their door. But again, there was a system in place that automatically posted that in such a way that it readily access.
I have a question there. Wouldn't we be able to find on Cubicle, for example? The, on an ongoing basis?
Well, yeah, Cubicle, you only allow individual addresses. You can't basically go in and say, send to everybody. That's what it is. And then in addition, want to thank Judy Vick. She took over the health center, which is woefully out of date. We got that synchronized and got the tags printed and presumably over there and distributed to personnel as well. So everybody should have the tags on, and marketing is going to proceed to print tag for the early accepting people and early acceptance on the tag so the color difference when you see them around. And again, I encourage people to use it for the temporary for selections. We haven't been billed for that yet, have we?
For the, no, I haven't gotten the bill.
Okay, I'll pursue that with appropriate parties to get that shipped. Moving on, any questions on that? Okay, Remembrance Book, Ellen had been taking care of that and had been, had she offered her desire after 6 years to step back. I published a notice in the Forest today and basically ended up getting 3 people offered to take it over, but basically they came in staggered. I basically grabbed the first person who said they were willing to take it on, and that transfer will occur the end of this month. But again, whether it was just the remembrance book and purpose itself or what, I don't know, but putting a nicely worded request in the force today was at least spectacularly successful. We got 3 volunteers to step up there. Sunday we're taking it. Any comments, questions?
That was Ellen Durrett that you're speaking about.
Pardon me?
That was Ellen Durrett.
Yeah.
Was
Yeah, yes.
Just,
it
I'm
was.
sorry. I know.
And by the way, the new person would be Sharon Trench.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yes. So now where would that remembrance
The,
be?
That's.
It's with that.
We still have to find a library.
Okay, if there's no discussion on that,
Oh, okay.
I'd like to move on to new business. The Healthcare Resident Council caucus. Don Dave, I asked Anita to specifically speak to that based on the input you have provided me. And I believe she sort of articulated the administration's position. Where do we go from here?
I think she's recognized their legal requirement. But she said, tracks with what we had hoped to do, which would make the health center residents council something of use to the residents of the health center. She said, no, you can't have an independent lead, living person lead it. Well, that's semantics. We could have somebody in there and they have to let us have somebody in there. They can help manage the group without staff being. So I think that gets us where we.
So I think the devil in the detail. Make the
the idea of staff liaison is person, staff between the meeting. The idea would be that person not be in the entire time. There should be a time where it's just the residents and people, the residents in the room. To be in there. Who's carrying the ball for, both of you or you guys? Well, I'm gonna talk to Leanne about this. That'll be my next.
I think it's become a health committee issue.
It's a health committee issue. I will.
I think with that, we don't really need a caucus. It's not much value added from a caucus.
It needs to be about one push, the entire process, again, give healthcare residents chance to speak confidentially about concerns they have. You know, I read that. To me, the caucus is, you know, he said. Caucus is not a grievance, you know, communication. You know, bunch of white having grievance maybe per se, but we wanted to feel that those issues are constantly brought forward. And that's a key part of what the health council is also a communication. So it's great. Have I opened the door for you to get together with Leah? Oh, I think so. Yeah. Okay. Then it was holding me up and talking to me. Back there. I'm lucky she's not talking to me. I'd like to put that on as a future track, definitely keep updated and make sure that people are meeting towards the resolution. I wanted to get some discussion on the Forester publication. Andre brought that up a little bit, where she said we're stepping down the hard copies. Okay. And so the issue comes in is, how do we know that all the residents will have access to the Forester if they so desire? Clearly, just posting that cube ago, although that's a great first step, we're still only getting about 60% access to the residents on Cuba. To me, that is stunningly low. Maybe normal, but when you consider the fact that all the information of what's taking place if the administration is posted their ability to book transportation, the book in for going to meetings, and book reservations for the dining halls. I would have thought it would have been higher, much more toward the 80% mark, with only about 20 people saying I don't want to go to the company. So to me, it's still an issue to make sure that although we move to save money, we don't disenfranchise some of the residents. So the issue comes in is there any way trying to get a feel for what is the right ramp down process, and are we in sync in terms of maximizing communication? And as I say, we're not going to be 100%, but you'd like to please as many of the people as possible within our ability to do so.
Well, Andre described it, it sounds like you're moving towards a hybrid, if you will. It'll be digitally available, but also hard copies for those who are copies, right?
So that's the thing, and we'd have to ask Dave, because he and I have been corresponding about this. It's like, how will the Forester Committee know who wants to vote?
Why not do the same approach that's been taken with the monthly calendar that we touched on, where for the first week of the month?
Let's not debate what our plan is there.
Well,
You know, let me explain the plan before we can worry about it. Next week, we will put out, late next week, the next version of the Forester will be, the next issue will be released. Be released in hard copy. There will be a copy put in everybody's mailboxes that has been in the past. We will also announce through the Forest Forward, through the news on Cubigo, through an article in the Forester itself, that we plan to stop putting them in mailboxes in the future. We will print enough to have copies available in the mailroom, those slots. And if you aren't able or don't want to just look at the online version, you can grab one of those. And we can
wrap down how many we print based on how many of those disappeared. Basically what I was saying.
Did you?
So where will they be available?
No, there's just three.
Where will they, in the mailroom?
Yeah, the way what they're doing it with the monthly calendar is thing. No need to work. There's still an issue of archiving, just as there is with everything else that is that shape. All the foresters exist in electronic version. I don't personally have them, but they exist. We have the same issue of archiving those as we do with minutes and everything else. That has to be a
You're
solution.
absolutely right.
They're on the RA website right now.
Yes.
That's where you can find them, way back. Way back.
Yes, you're right.
And that's where they should, I mean, I don't know, that is a very valuable resource because it gives a history of this place, so somehow that needs to be continued.
Do you ever?
Yes, I did go out to that.
Anybody, has there been anybody ever tried to look at the 1990s forestry?
Yes.
Yes,
Not easy.
It's not easy.
well, but you can find them.
But you can find the issue, yeah, but if you're looking for a specific.
Oh, you can't, you can't search like, but there's not a search part, but no, I mean, just to be able to go back and find them.
Will issue not. But it's, I thought they said, no.
Well, there's a limited space there, but then I don't intend to try to put each one of them on there, going back as far as I can. That's still an archive issue.
But since we're running out of time here, is it appropriate to ask you, kind of the government to pull together a small group, maybe include some of the people from here, like, for instance, we're talking databases as well, to define how we should proceed on archiving and in what form and what format and what time period.
Sure, I can do that. Is the issue is we're going from paper copies to digital? Is that?
You tell me.
I think the issue is we need a place to store the archives digital. And the IT committee is working on it.
That may be difficult to find. I will say a lot of this stuff that's on here is now on Cubic. If you want to see the NRA and the NC North Carolina CCRA.
I would question whether Cuba would be informed a archiving base was past, a certain period of date.
They've
Only
already,
that they didn't purge their records.
they've already said they're not gonna store President Association archives.
It's the archive. They will store the current.
Yeah, but not the archives, which is what we need to find
But
place.
that's the point. We have to decide, I mean, right now, part of the process of using our manual is you're supposed to take the hard copy to the correspondence room that's past 2 years and move it up to the archival room and update your book. And that has not been done.
How does it get moved up there?
Pardon?
How does it get moved up there?
Carried by a person.
Who?
Where Kate get to carrying it up? What do you?
The room box?
But we,
Yeah.
How did you get in?
The room's not locked.
Yes, well, it
yeah,
is.
the room is not. Where is it? It's,
I get that once.
I know
The-
where.
I can only tell you my experience with it. When I read that every 2 years we should carry it, so I was going to take my thing and go up and carry it. Your key works on the lock, one key, so everybody's key will go down.
Oh, really?
So anybody's key, your personal key will work on that to go in. But you will not be able to find where to put it, how to do it, because the knowledge is lost. Exactly how we used to organize and so on. So it was not easy for me. I kind of realized it's a much complex problem. So I asked the last person who served at the archives, and she said everything is going to go on the RS site. You don't need to worry about it. That opened up this issue that are we doing that? Is that a plan? How do we carry it? So, at this moment, it's very difficult to manage unless you really have a specialist who really goes and manages it.
Well, also, when I went into it, there was all this equipment that had nothing to do with,
That's like.
yeah, you can't even sit down and work and organize.
Anyway, Tom, I think it's important for someone to articulate exactly what the problem is. And exactly what you should put into practice and what some possibilities solutions are so the board can decide where to go. But I think it'd be helpful, to basically, decide, do we move it all off the digital, in which case we store it ourselves somewhere. That, then we can buy a multi-gigabit disk drive, for God's sake, and just dump it over if it's already digital. And, hire somebody to do scanning to dump the past records if that's perfectly. But if it comes in, and you have it partially paper, partially digital. So what? You could purge it after umpteen years, so we make sure we have everything all that we got. Right now, I know I would have loved to have asked them something about the dedication on the building, the
Yeah.
appropriate parties. I couldn't find anything.
Hmm. But-
Conveniently, I mean, maybe I spent a week on it, I could on something, but I didn't want to do that, but I'm on time.
So in our organizational chart, we have a position for archivists, but we don't have anybody,
We haven't figured it for years.
so like,
There used to be people that did not.
yeah.
I thought it would be our time.
We don't know.
No, he
That
is.
sounds like another good article.
Ed is the legal guy, isn't
Get
he?
it argued. General.
See, the archivist is basically up to the secretary.
Oh.
I didn't, well, I had some knowledge there, he worked with all. And I think they gave up because it was very difficult to manage.
Hmm.
I'm not sure, would you be willing to at least define the problem you reported at the?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me express at least one main problem is to have an RA website. We need a webmaster. And Erwin does some of it. I don't, he will tell you himself, he doesn't want the full-time job. And we need to find a couple of other people who are good at it. And part of the problem is, I'm 80 years old. I'm not gonna be here forever. And that's what happened the last time. The Lowell did very well and he died.
Yes, he did.
And we have to, it's very difficult to keep it going unless we have some sort of continuity.
And one of the things I would suggest for thinking in terms of long range planning is surely there'll be about another 100 and some odd new residents coming in, which will bring in another $1,000 in revenue into our bank, okay? And what we're experiencing more and more is people come here for a reason. That's because they have some health issues and they want to make sure that they're protected if somebody takes a turn for the worse. So I think it appropriate to start thinking, can we solve some of our problems by subcontracting this out? So we don't run into the issue where a critical person suddenly has a dramatic change in health issue and the system crashes against the wall. And I repeat, I tried to get the dues raised from $10 to $15 a year. That's $1.50 a month. Okay, I'll bet most of the people here to drop that out of their pocket monthly if they walk along from the dining hall or wherever they're going. So we have another source of money because that would give you another $2,000. And the question is, what will it cost to do some contracting? Or even hiring, as I thought, interns, the kids from high school coming to do key entry and solo type items, and that becomes the issue.
We're also gonna be saving $3,000 a year printed copies of Forest.
We have a lot of options.
We
You're right.
could get rid of our dues entirely, or we could spend it on something like what you described.
You're right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It sounds good to me.
that's the intern.
I will, try to put in place a long-range planning committee to address some of these issues. Is there somebody, or anybody around the table would like to volunteer on for that committee? Your enthusiasm is really good.
We're smart. We know the problem.
All right,
Need to be a new position.
last question I have. I take a note of Jeff, from your minutes, that there, one is thinking of doing a survey of dining styles.
Eating habits, the dietary preferences.
Yeah, that's it. Who's doing it?
Well, their, senior staff and line is going to put together a survey form and bring that back to the March meeting. And then, once we agree on it, it'll be distributed to everybody.
Okay. Would it be possible, or would we even think of doing it as part of that, an extension of that, the dining format preference? You know, one of the big issues out there, I know they're gonna make the decision and tell us what they're doing. But it would be nice to provide them with information from the residents that say, I could care less if Rosewood disappears, or I love Rosewood, et cetera. Clearly, putting special menus in like you're doing, to me, is encouraging the extension of Rosewood, rather than the demise of it.
Yeah.
And that transforms into Greenwood or whatever.
Yeah, the concern is that kind of dining preferences are going to be, number one, all over the place. It's gonna be hard to frame that with specific questions. And certainly in terms of eliminating venues, it's not gonna have any influence on administration. I mean, we know the dining venues are gonna have, the issue may be how are each of those gonna operate, what hours and things like that. But this was a specific issue, came out of a discussion one of the dining services committee members had with a counterpart at the Cedars. And the idea of knowing before the chefs try to prepare certain dishes that appeal to a niche, how big is that niche? I mean, one example is, and I think it's gonna come back, there's virtually no strict vegans, because that is so different. Became with dairy products, eggs, as well as meat proteins. So, but we can survey, but more in terms of vegetarianism, those particular, and there's different levels of vegetarian. People don't eat just red meat, people don't eat red meat and chicken, people don't eat red meat, chicken, and seafood, so forth. So the idea was at least get a feel for that before we then go back to the chefs and say, look, here's a population that doesn't feel like their needs are being met, gluten sensitivity. That was. So, we can't, I don't think we can survey everything. This was a more specifically focused thing. I think this general idea of what people want, you're just gonna get everything. That's great.
We put in place a dining committee to address the impact of the territory. It seems to be part of that, and to understand exactly what current residents' dining desires are, because I know the administration is talking to new residents in terms of what are their expectations of the new year. Anyway, am I the only one who feels like that, or does
I think they.
everybody else agree that such a
Literally
survey
pushing you pushed off. And I've heard that even though Anita said she was going to, that she and April, that they had not done the survey.
Right, I mean, we know a number of people moving onto the terraces, they have not been solicited in terms of the upgrading preferences are.
There is a survey that has just gone out, by April at that.
Yeah.
We should be getting information back by almost the end of the month, which is asking all kinds of questions. I have not seen the survey. I'm waiting for it will help us as we form our teams, some of the data. I don't think the new residents have any idea about anything with dining with any specificity, just as we are sort of in the background. And I think it's really high time that administration starts talking about what is going to happen. Because, you know, time is marching on.
Yes, it is.
The timeline, right now, Nathan has been charged by Anita to come back to her with his proposed plan by the beginning of April. Original January, I was pushed back.
Well, look, for 5 minutes past where I wanted to be because people are outside knocking at the door. This again is an issue, it's not gonna go away, we will discuss that next time, as we get into the next time.
Can you tell us what happens in the March meeting if we all of a sudden disappear?
The last comment, the March meeting, which is March 17th. That's a membership one.
Yeah.
Okay, they'll be in the auditorium, which will be open at that time, I'm sure. And I've currently set it 2 o'clock, but I may change that time. For your awareness, I've invited Chuck Kennedy, who is the chair of the governing board, to attend that meeting and give a brief presentation as to the composition of the board, what they do, things of that sort. And I'm waiting for his reply, and I said I could move it to later in the evening if it made his ability to attend easier. I said it was extended to other members on the board, but I did not want to impose on their time until we felt it was productive for all, you know, from their perspective and point of view. This was common practice back about 2010 to 2016, with the construction and the COVID. Disappeared and that's just for your information. And I'll check the email if it is concerned or not concerned.
But for those of us who are new, do we do a presentation? Is there a format for that presentation? Is there a timeline? Is there about
Yeah, well,
five?
the format for the presentation is 3 to 5 minutes per director. The format is to highlight what you did for the residents over the past quarter and issues that we think are pertinent that you will be tracking for the next period. The most important part of that is 5 minutes or less.
That's what I want to
Okay,
hear.
I have not pulled people off the stage before or recognize the fact there'll be 10 reports.
Right.
Okay? 50 minutes, if everybody takes a maximum 5 minutes. There's a treasury report on top of it. There's a president's report, which I will keep short. There's Anita's report,
Right.
and I do not plan to curtail what she has to say if it takes more than 5 minutes. I guess you keep that together for everybody. And although I've allocated 5 minutes for, Kennedy, if he goes longer, I'm not gonna tell him.
No.
Okay, so we're looking at well over an hour for that meeting. If you just shoot, everybody stays at the minimum level. Right. At the maximum level. I'm hoping something will be short. Okay,
Okay, just wanted to make sure that's what we were doing.
motion we adjourn. Something?
So we don't-
All right. Things are going to be.